The Lil Hercules model rocket made its debut in the 1965 Centuri catalog. Centuri engineering was the primary alternative to Estes model rockets in the 1960s, 70s, and early 1980s. As you can see, it is presented with a dark-colored paint scheme, possibly black, red, or dark blue, with a metallic band below the nose cone. The Lil Hercules is a small tumble recovery rocket with 4 fins, a short stubby body, a blunt nose cone, and catalog designation KA-1. It was originally designed to make use of Centuri's new Series 3 motors, which were shortened versions of some of their original Series 1 motors. They were designed to save weight and fit into smaller airframes such as the Lil Hercules. The Lil Hercules would retain this solid dark paint scheme from its 1965 introduction through the 1966, 67, and 1968 catalogs. Then, in 1969, it received a new paint scheme, a white body with dark, possibly red fins, and a double band around the top of the fuselage below the nose cone. The very next year, in 1970, Centuri was trying its hand at colored printing effects and added a reddish effect to the fins and nose of the rocket. A Centuri logo decal can also be seen. This was short-lived, however, as in 1971 it was back to the same presentation seen in the 1969 catalog. Later, in 1971, the Lil Hercules underwent a major design change and was rebranded as the Lil Hercules 2. The new design was primarily intended to allow the Lil Hercules to make use of standard length Series 1 motors as the Series 3 motors were being phased out. Other changes to the kit were the introduction of die-cut fins and a plastic nose cone in place of the balsa one. The Lil Hercules 2 was a very limited run kit, and it never appeared in any Centuri catalog. The very next year, in 1972, Centuri had rebranded the revised kit as the Lil Herc and presented it in a flashy new paint scheme with blue fins, a white body with red nose cone, and chrome striping as trim. The new Lil Herc would appear with this upgraded paint and decal scheme through the 1974 catalog year. For some reason, in the 1975 catalog, it was returned to the simpler 1969 white and red scheme. This was likely due to the fact that the catalogs from 1975 through 1978 were printed multiple times a year in a larger format and were black and white, so the 1969 scheme was easier to represent. 1975 was also the first of 2 part number changes that saw the KA-1 part number changed to 2100 or 2100. That part number didn't last long, as in the next catalog in 1976 it changed again to 5001, which would remain its designation throughout the remainder of Centuri's existence as a company. Finally, in 1983, in its last published catalog that bore a striking resemblance to the Estes catalog of the same year, as by now Centuri and Estes had been consolidated under a single parent company, the Lil Herc was returned to its flashy, multicolored 1972 paint scheme. But alas, this was the end of the line for Centuri and the Lil Herc. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while since my last video, and I apologize for that. I just had a lot going on in my life that I had to take care of a few things that kept me away from the building table for some time, but we're back now. I hope to keep the videos coming at a more regular clip after this. And as promised in the last video, this one is going to be something different. We're going to do what I call these show and tell videos, and these are just going to be very short, nothing lengthy like the build videos have been. These will only be a few minutes long. And the purpose is just so that I can show off and talk a little bit about rockets that I built prior to starting my channel. And the first one that I wanted to do was the Lil Hercules. And the reason I wanted to do this one first is because this rocket, probably more than any other, marks the beginning of my serious involvement in rocketry. If you watched my introduction video, I think I shared the story about my good friend Jeff Brewer, who I went to school with in the 5th grade. And his brother, his older brother, was very much into rockets. This would have been in the mid-70s. And he had quite a few rockets. And I went over to his house, and his brothers, Jeff showed me all his brother's rockets. And we decided that we wanted to do rockets. And so the next day or a couple days later, Jeff shows up to school with the Lil Hercules here. And very proud of it. And we were just oohing and ahhing over that. And I remember being so jealous. And and I was like, man, I want to get a rocket. And so I think that evening, that very evening, I called my mother into taking me to the local hobby store, and I bought the Centuri Micron, which is a very kind of comparable kit to this, a little bit different. We'll do a show and tell video on that one too at some point. But this is the one that kind of inspired me. This is the first rocket that first model rocket that I really ever, except for the Quasar, which somebody gave me a Quasar kit when I was 7 or 8 years old that I didn't know what to do with. It was a starter kit. Technically, that was the first rocket I ever saw or had, but that never even came close to being built, and I didn't even know anything about model rocketry at that point. But this I did, and this is what really kind of got me hooked on the idea of building and flying model rockets. So that's why this one is the first one. And so as you can see, the one I built, I've tried to build it pretty close to the package. As you saw in the intro, I believe that this scheme was meant to be red, just based on some of the catalog colors and renderings. And so I built mine with a red and white scheme here. So I'll throw up some construction videos here. I built this rocket several years ago, probably 10 years ago or more. But I still had some pictures from when I built it. I did take some pictures, so I'll throw those up here. Probably the most interesting aspect of the construction of the Lil Hercules is in the tail. Centuri had you mount washers, metal washers, and bed them in the wood in the tail, and they did that so that it would make the rocket tail heavy. And as you can probably notice, this was not designed to have any kind of parachute. It's much too small for that. It was designed to eject the motor and then just fall back to the earth under its own weight. But where other rockets, when they tumble recovery, they'll do the end over end, tumble recovery. This one, I think the reason they had you put the washers in the tail was they wanted the rocket to fall kind of just vertically still like this, almost like a knuckleball in baseball. It's just going to fall flat, and as it does, the fins and the body will provide the wind resistance. So I haven't flown this yet, so I don't know if that's if the counterweight will actually do that. I'm sure it would depend on a lot of things like wind and everything else, but I think that was the intention, just from the diagrams, and as you can see on the cover here, it's kind of falling kind of like that. I don't know if you can even see that on the camera, but there's a little picture there of the guy waiting to catch the rocket, and it's kind of falling like this. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's the Lil Hercules. So again, these videos are just going to be short little videos. It'll give me a chance to provide a little history of the rocket. There's some other rockets up there on my shelf that I would love to do at least show and tell of. Just iconic kits from Estes and Centuri. And so yeah, look forward to those, just kind of interspersed with the build videos. Maybe I'll use them as filler, like if we're on a really long build project and it's been a while, we'll put one of those up to kind of fill the gap. So with that, we'll put you aside and we'll talk about our next build video. So what are we going to do? I thought about this and I had several choices. and I actually kind of went back and forth and couldn't decide. But I finally decided on the rocket I want to build next. And most of the rockets we've built up to now, in fact all of the rockets we've built on the channel so far have been skill level 1 or skill level 2. I think the Odyssey might have been a skill level 2. Everything else was just basically very basic rocket, skill level 1. So we're going to basically go from the shallow end of the pool to the deep end of the pool, because the next rocket we're going to build is none other than the SD's Mars Lander. Now, I love this kit. This is one of my favorite kits. This and the Atlantis are probably my favorite Estes kits of all time. It's very iconic. As you can see, it's designed to sit on its legs, and it actually will land. It comes down on a parachute, and it's designed to kind of land on these landing legs that are spring-loaded. And it's a skill level 5 kit, so it's going to be quite involved. And we are not going to do a clone. We are actually going to build the Estes kit. There is a clone available. It was made by Semrock. It's identical in almost every way to the Estes kit. The reason I'm going to go with the Estes kit, and I'll show the comparison here when we do the build video, but it has to do with these sections here are embossed with panel lines and stuff to make the rocket look kind of futuristic. And for whatever reason, I don't know what the method Semrock used when they made their embossed wraps, but the embossing on the Semrock kit is very faint, whereas the embossing on the Estes kit is really deep and sharp, and it really makes a difference when you look at the finished rocket. The Estes one just pops a little more because it has that texture to it, and so that's why I am actually going to go ahead and build the actual kit. Now, these things are not that easy to come by. You can get them on eBay. They tend to be kind of expensive. You'll probably pay well over $100 for one in good condition. But they are a very, very cool rocket. I would say they're worth it. Again, I'm looking forward to this. I built one of these back in the 80s. It came out pretty well. I was pretty happy with it back then. I don't know what happened to that rocket. I don't have a lot of the rockets I had back then. They just got lost in time over different moves and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely time to get this one back on the shelf. So this is the next project, and we'll start that in the next week or so. And I hope you'll join me. Now, I may not do all the building on camera for this kit. I'll try to do most of the interesting stuff, at least on camera. I'll at least show progress as I do things. There'll definitely be a lot of on-camera content during the build. But like if I have to build 4 landing legs, I may do 1 on camera and then the other 3 off camera, and that sort of thing. So. So yeah, this is going to be fun. Other than that, yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you'll join me for the Mars Lander build, and we'll see you then.